Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Clackmannanshire here, right in the heart of the country. And for this review we are going to return to one of my local breweries who I've had many beers from over the years. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would describe them as a kind of session beer orientated brewery, but they're also very well known for their historical beers, and more recently they've been releasing a few kind of more punchy things as well, and it's one of those that we're going to have a look at today. So for this review then, we are going to go a mile or two down the road to Alloa, which is of course home to Williams Brothers Brewing Company. So the beer we're looking at today is another member of the Totemic Tallboys range, and as of January 2021 this is the sixth and final member that I was going to review for you here on the channel. So yeah, this one is called the Tin Man Tropical IPA. It comes in at 5.5% ABV, and I think you know already what kind of style this one is. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. So far on the channel I reviewed the Juice Tiger. That was the very first one of the Totemic Tallboys that I reviewed, a lovely kind of orangey orientated West Coast IPA. Then we had the Sapien, which was a fake IPA, and that was really quite quirky as well. I thought that beer was really nicely done. And then we moved on to the four original Totemic Tallboy beers. So we started with Choca Blocka, which was the stout. Then we had the Shea Guava, which was a really interesting guava orientated lager beer, very juicy and unusual. Then we had the Talking Head American Pale Ale, which I thought was one of the most bitter beers I've had from Williams Brothers Brewing Company. And now we have this one, which is the strongest, I think, of the lighter beers of the original four Totemic Tallboys. So yeah, an IPA coming in at 5.5% ABV, and I have to say I have enjoyed reviewing this series so far. There's just something very distinctive about the Williams Brothers beers that even when they do slightly, you know, more kind of punchy things like this, you can always tell from the malt base that it is a Williams Brothers beer. So I'm curious to see whether that carries over into this one as well. I have heard this beer is quite nice, so fingers crossed it carries on in the same vein as the Talking Head, because I was impressed with that one. Really enjoyed that, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Williams Brothers Brewing Company before, and hopefully we can add some more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Williams Brothers Brewing Company then, on to the brewery notes. So, as I've told you before, Williams Brothers Brewing Company, or the company that would become this brewery, they started off as the family-owned Glenbrew homebrewing shop through in Glasgow. So the first ale that they produced was inspired by a 17th century Gaelic recipe for Freya Heather Ale, which takes its name of course from the synonymous Celtic mythological hero. But basically, back in 1988, a woman of Gaelic descent came into the brew shop with a translation of this recipe from Gaelic into English, and she wanted to recreate a batch of this beer to enjoy with her family, but she agreed that she was going to share the recipe with Bruce Williams in exchange for help actually brewing it. And I think basically, owing to the success that Williams Brothers have had off the back of this beer, I think this family basically get as much of the Freya Heather Ale as they want, and it is a very nice beer, so I would recommend that you check it out. But they produced a small batch of only 5 barrels of this in the Tainoak railway station, which is out near Oban in the west coast of Scotland. Very pretty part of the country. But by the following year, word of mouth meant that the demand for this beer had just increased dramatically. So at this point in 1989, Scott Williams joined his brother Bruce, and they began to develop other historic beers such as the Groatset Gooseberry Wheat Ale, the Kelpie Seaweed Ale, the Abelum Elderberry Black Ale, which from what I understand was introduced into Scotland by Irish Druids, and then they also did the Alba Pine Ale as well, which I think is the only one of those 4 that I've reviewed on the channel for you thus far. But the official start date of Williams Brothers is listed as 1992, and those 4 recipes that I've just mentioned to you were produced originally at the Macleay Brewery in Alloa, and then at the Craigmill Brewery in Strathaven to the south of Glasgow, which was actually built by Williams Brothers Brewery. They produced them there between 1998 and 2004. That site, of course, is now occupied by Strathaven Brewery. But in 2004, the company relocated to their current base at the 4th Brewery in Kellybank in Alloa, and this was when they adopted the name Williams Brothers Brewing Company officially. Oddly enough though, they're the last brewery in the old brewing capital of Scotland, and over the years they've just gradually built up the capacity of this brewery to 100,000 hectolitres of beer per year. So that is 1 million litres of beer per year, if I remember rightly. But they do have plans to build a new brewery near their current site that will have a capacity of 200,000 hectolitres of beer per year, and these days the brewery is mainly run by Chris Williams, who is Bruce's son, but Scott Williams is also still involved as well. But yeah, I'm hoping that at some point, once this whole COVID-19 pandemic buggers off, maybe in September when I come home from a friend's wedding, I am hoping that we can get a Meet the Brewery segment with Chris and with Scott and Bruce as well. That would be awesome if we could get all 3 of them. So basically this brewery these days is actually Williams Brothers and Son brewery, I guess you could say. But yeah, over the years I've had some really nice beers from these guys. Like I said earlier, I would always consider this brewery to be quite a session beer orientated brewery. My favourite beer probably is the Caesar Augustus. I absolutely love that one. The Freyek is a lovely beer as well, particularly if you can get it on tap. The Joker IPA is very, very popular, and I like the slightly more malty ones as well. You know, the Paradigm Shift and the which is the Imperial Red IPA, or the Imperial Red Ale, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but also the Pavlov's Dog. I always liked that beer as well. That was a slightly more malty one. But yeah, most of their beers tend to be, you know, the sort of 4 or 5% kind of golden ales and stuff like this, but they're always really pretty nice actually, and they're very distinctive because of the malt base. And these guys are actually a very prolific brewery as well. March of the Penguins, if you want some, is always very good as well if you want something from the darker side of the spectrum. But they've got about 20 or so beers at the moment that they brew regularly, and there used to be more than that, but I think they've retired a few of them in recent times actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Williams Brothers Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you know, if you want to learn more about all those different beers, you can either look at the website, because they've got nice brewing sheet data on there that you can look at for the beers as well if you're an ingredients nerd like me. But you can also check out the Untappd, Rate Beer and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different things as well. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, it's got these lovely artworks. It's got the lovely artwork there in Scotland. My mum calls this a tinny. I would just call it a can. It's a nice big tall boy can. This one is a half-litre can rather than the 440s. I did notice this actually, that the 2 new ones, the Sapien and the the Sapien and the Juice Tiger, were released in 440s rather than the half-litre 500s as the original 4 were. I'm not sure what the reason for that was. They do have another beer that's in a can as well called the Craft Lager, and I was saying in the last video that I did that I wanted to have a go at a lager from these guys, so I will see about getting a hold of that one for you the next time I come home. Valhalla's Goat, incidentally, in Glasgow is actually owned by Williams Brothers Brewing, and these guys also have a share in Drygate Brewing Company along with Tennent's as well, so worth bearing that in mind too. So yeah, it says on the back of the tin here, the head honcho of the Totemic Tallboy range, this tribal IPA is pale and powerful with heavy hitting tropical notes. 5.5% ABV. This one half-litre can, and I got this one in Sainsbury's, so I think it was like 180 or something like that. It wasn't too expensive, like £2 or something. So yeah, most of the beers are still sold in the half-litre bottles, apart from these cans actually. So yeah, I think it probably was a marketing decision to put these in the cans to kind of get more craft drinkers into trying some of the Williams Brothers stuff. But yeah, 5.5% IPA. This one, the stats on the beer, it's hopped with Magnum, which as we know is a popular bittering hop, Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic, Galaxy and Azaka. So this is perhaps the most diverse hop base that I've found in one of the Williams Brothers beers so far. And the malt base is lager malt and Vienna malt, so I think it will be that distinctive Williams Brothers thing we see from this again. But Citra, as we know, 14% alpha acid American hop, lots of lovely mangoes and little complexities. Simcoe, about 12% alpha acid American, that gives you lots of kind of nice juicy passion fruity notes. Mosaic, again American, 14% alpha acid roughly, lots of juicy tangerines. And then Galaxy, Australian, That again, I think it's about 13 or 14% alpha acid, and it gives you a lot of kind of passion fruit and pineapple. And then finally, Azaka again is American with a kind of more mandarin-y orangey note and a little bit of pineapple as well. So I think this one could be pretty interesting. But at 5.5%, of course, it is quite low in alcohol for an IPA. This is more about kind of pale ale strength, to be honest with you. But yeah, remember, pale ales and IPAs are all related to each other through the malt to hop ratio. You've got the double IPA and the barley wine in that family as well. But yeah, I think because there's all this thing with session IPAs, and as I've mentioned in other videos recently, I think I've been a bit hazy on, pardon the pun, on where the line is between you know, pale ales and session IPAs. And I think technically speaking, you know, a session IPA is basically where they've maintained the malt to hop ratio of an IPA, but just taken the malt content down and made it lower alcohol. So I think technically speaking, that is what you should expect from a session IPA. But again, flavour profile wise, it's not a million miles away from a pale ale. But you don't see too many pale ales back over in Sweden. I think it's to do with the tax and things like that. But in fairness, I've not reviewed all that many pale ales on the channel over the years. But yeah, some New Barns Brewery through in Edinburgh, I've got some really nice ones. So you know, might convert me a little bit. I really like the pale ales that I had from New Barns Brewery. Actually, they were very, very nicely done, very sessionable beers. But yeah, as you can see with this one, this has poured a lovely kind of bright golden straw colour. If I put my light through this, it's definitely a nice kind of pale golden straw colour. It's actually very similar to some pilsners that I've seen in terms of its appearance so far. I've put about maybe 80% of the can, something like that, into the glass, but you can see if I put my fingers behind the glass there, it's a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour, very rich golden colour. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head, and you can see that the head is maybe about a little bit less than a quarter finger when it was poured, but it's just faded away to be a very kind of thin, very slightly foamy layer. But there is a good little bit of kind of foam just sitting around the edge of the glass there. But in terms of its appearance, it looks absolutely lovely, this one. Remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on two things. One, the type of malts that you use, and two, the length of the boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you'll get a darker colour out of the beer, but that depends in the first instance on the type of malts that you use. This one just has lager malt and Vienna malt in it, so getting a kind of, I might have expected a slightly more copper tint out of it considering the Vienna malt, but this getting a sort of more pale but still quite rich golden kind of colour out of this one is it's kind of, you know, it kind of should be expected, to be honest. It's not unheard of to have an IPA that has a colour like this. Actually, the West Coasters could be, you know, very rich in amber, or they could be a little bit more kind of golden like this actually. But this one doesn't have a kind of caramel orientated malt in it, so it's not surprising that it's a little bit more towards the kind of golden end of the spectrum. But it certainly looks the part of an IPA. I'm pretty sure this one will be more of a West Coast IPA, just going from the malt base. But then again, as I've said to you, one of the signatures for me of Williams Brothers is that malt base. It's always got this kind of brown bready but still quite biscuity kind of thing to it. I think they love Vienna malt. I'm pretty sure it's something to do with one of the yeasts. I think they've got their own house yeasts in Williams Brothers, but they've also got they also love Vienna malt as well, and I think it's that combination that is the kind of signature of Williams Brothers Brewing. But yeah, lovely looking beer, this one. Nothing overly surprising about it in terms of its appearance, but let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we go. I think this will be pretty cool. Now, I'm going to say straight away, it smells like a Williams Brothers beer. Absolutely. There's just something that they're never going to get away from that, and I think it's, you know, it must be intentional. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's something to do with the yeasts as well. I don't think it's just the malts that they're using. I'm pretty sure they've got their own house yeasts in there. But you know, straight away, if I was to, I'm almost certain that if I smelt this beer blind, I could tell you this was a Williams Brothers beer. I would probably struggle with the dark ones, I would think, but anything that comes out of Williams Brothers Brewery that is you know, that is on the lighter side of things, and it's an ale, I'm pretty sure I could tell you that's Williams Brothers right away. So yeah, straight away with this beer you get that lovely kind of brown bready malt base out of it. It's kind of like a wholemeal, but it's got a very sweet kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of base to it. There's a lovely kind of sweet caramel note to it, but there's a lot of biscuity character in there, a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So I really like how everything in this beer pieces together. Yeah, the aroma out of this one is just really, really nice. Yeah, it's It's an absolutely solid smelling beer, this. I love the malty side of things. You guys know, if you've watched the channel before, I love paying a little bit more attention to the malt base. I think it's the Scottish sweet tooth. So I do like the beers to be a little bit more malty. To be honest, I like them to be very well balanced and for the malt to show its head. But yeah, this one, it is kind of typical of what you'd expect of Williams Brothers. Nice brown bready base, McVitie's digestive biscuits, a little bit more of a kind of oily, caramelly sort of thing. And so, yeah, I really like how that pieces together in this one. So yeah, the malty side of things in this is really very nice. But yeah, it is signature Williams Brothers brewing stuff actually. There's maybe one or two little very slightly woody undertones to it. You get a little bit more graininess out of it as you smell it a little bit more. But you know, if you've had other beers from these guys, you'll know exactly what I mean when you smell this one, signature Williams Brothers malt base. And I'm sure the yeast is involved in there as well. But yeah, lovely stuff, lovely stuff. On the hoppy side of things, again, it smells familiar. It does smell familiar. But yeah, you can smell a nice, good little bit of floral aromaticity to this one. There's a little bit of earthiness in there as well, which is most likely to come from the mosaic. But yeah, as I say, a little bit of earthiness to it, nice little bit of floral aromaticity. It's not overly spicy or anything like that, but it does have a little bit of deep floral aromaticity to it, and then there's just a little bit of a kind of grassy quality in there as well. But the green side of this beer is quite nice, and again, it comes across as quite typical of you know, some of the other Williams Brothers stuff I've had before. Where this one differs though is the fruity side of it. It's got a lovely big oily fruity character to it. So for me, this one actually leans towards the orangey side of things, and that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed the Juice Tiger so much actually. I love a big orangey, oily IPA, but this one for me has got a lot of kind of oily oranges in it, and that will be the Azaka and the Mosaic that are contributing to that. So I really like how that goes together, absolutely. But the oranges, they do come across. I think if I was smelling this blind, I might guess it was Amarillo. So I think the Mosaic, the Mosaic usually gives you a slightly lighter tangerine, and the Azaka will give you a slightly sharper mandarin from what I remember. But it does, when those two kind of mix together, as they're doing in this one, it seems to be more Amarillo and kind of oily like, if that makes sense. Amarillo is a very oily orange from what I remember. It's almost a little bit Mandarina Bavaria like as well, to be honest with you. Mandarina Bavaria's got a little bit of that more oily orange from what I remember. But yeah, lovely big orangey orientation in this beer. I think that's the most kind of prominent fruit side of the beer, to be honest with you. There's a wee bit of pineapple, which you're going to get from both the Galaxy and the Azaka in this one. They're both kind of contributing to that. So on top of the kind of oranges, you do get a little bit of a tropically pineapple kind of thing. And behind that, you can smell a few more oily things, both from the Simcoe and from the Citra. There is a bit of mango in there, and a sort of softer passion fruit as well. But I think this beer, the fruity side of this beer, is really orangey orientated for me. The more that I smell of it as well, I do get a wee tiny hint of lime out of it, which is interesting, and I think that will be Citra that will be giving you that in this beer. I think Citra is the one that's most likely to give you a wee touch of lime. So yeah, I like how that goes together, absolutely. Yeah, the aroma out of this beer, I think, is very nice actually. So yeah, the aroma out of this beer is very nice, very oily, kind of West Coasty orientated IPA. This one with that typical Williams Brothers malt base and kind of green component of the hops. So take a wee bit of time and just enjoy that one before you get stuck in. It's a really nice beer actually. So a really nice smelling beer, I should say. I've not tasted it yet, but yeah, let's go for it then and have a taste of this one. This is the Tin Man 5.5% IPA. Smells like it's going to be a West Coaster from one of my local breweries here in Clackmannanshire in Scotland, Williams Brothers. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn solid once again. Yeah, to be honest with you, this one, out of the four originals, I would say that this is potentially my favourite of the four original totemics. It's just nicely balanced, to be honest with you. What I would say about this one is that it's not madly different from the other Williams Brothers beers that I've had before. Yeah, the thing with the Talking Head I felt was really quite bitter actually. That's probably one of the most bitter beers I've had from Williams Brothers Brewing. But this one, it's just a little bit more kind of balanced, if that makes sense. I think this one, with the malty side of it and the hoppy side, it's just one of these ones where everything fits together very, very well. And I mean, at 5.5%, yeah, it's nowhere near as strong as the likes of the Juice Tiger. I think that was 7, and then the Sapien was 7.5. But I think, you know, the Joker double IPA not around 8% or something. But yeah, this, you know, so there are a few beers that Williams Brothers do that are quite a bit stronger than this. But this one for me, it's a really just nice, easy-going IPA, and I like that about it for sure. But it's not. This is the thing. I thought that, you know, the Totemic Tall Boys are supposed to be the sort of kind of big, punchy beers from these guys, but this isn't a million miles away from some of the other ones that I've had from Williams Brothers, come to think of it. But I like it. I do like it. I really like the how they do their beers at Williams Brothers Brewing. It's almost like they've got a kind of. It's almost like they take a kind of traditional Scottish malt base almost. Although it is a bit more kind of English ale malt base like, and they just put the American hops and things in that in, and they keep them session strength. I think it's a nice approach. I do think it is a nice approach, actually. And again, the brewery that I mentioned earlier, New Barns Brewing, if you like the Williams Brothers beers, you will enjoy what New Barns are doing as well. The New Barns Brewery beers are a little bit more American. And these ones, they use a more kind of American orientated type malt base, whereas these guys are doing a similar thing but with a more kind of traditional malt base. That's probably what separates these two breweries in a way, along with, you know, the historic recipes that Williams Brothers do. But I like this one. This gets a thumbs up from me. This could, you know, if this was available on tap and things, this one could become a kind of go-to for me, actually. I would definitely say that. You know, Caesar Augustus, I like the lager, a kind of IPA hybrid thing that has going on. But this one I could see, if this was available on tap, then it could very well become a thing. I need to have a look at In Deep, and I need to have a little look at In Deep from Williams Brothers. That's their pub underneath Valhalla's Goat, of course, and see if you can get some of these Totemic ones on tap, or if they are, simply put in the cans. But it's a lovely IPA, this one. I really like this. It's kind of like a modern take on the traditional IPAs almost. So yeah. It actually in a way reminds me of one or two of the IPAs I had from the Rooster Brewery in Yorkshire when I was in Durham for the year. So this one reminds me of that a little bit, come to think of it. But yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. Let's try and just break down the flavour profile of this one then and see how we go. So straight away with this beer, you get that really nice kind of smooth, kind of brown bready quality. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. The further that you go into the aftertaste, it does of course get a little bit more kind of grainy. On that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, it pardon me, just has a little bit of a more, it just has a little bit of a more kind of, oh, how would you say, it just has a little bit more kind of almost dryness and graininess in there as well. But on the back third of your palate, that's where the real kind of graininess comes out of this beer. You get those really kind of toasty, bread crusty kind of notes there at on the very back third of your palate. But you can feel the breadiness in that back third of your palate is slightly thicker, and that just kind of sits there. But if you go further forward on that back third of your palate, you can feel the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then as you move into that kind of middle third of your tongue, you get the more kind of smooth brown bready character coming out of it. But on top of that, in the very centre of your palate, you get the Vienna malt kind of brown sugary notes coming out, and of course this will be the boozy flavours that are playing into this as well. So in the very centre of your palate, you've got a nice, very kind of sweet caramel note there, but underneath that, of course, you've got a good little bit of the brown bread. And as you move further and further, out from the kind of middle of your palate there, it's got a very nice, it has got a very nice kind of more McVitie's digestive like kind of grainy aspect to it, which I think is very good. So yeah. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. But yeah, the malty side of this, it is very typical Williams Brothers. It's very, very nicely done. The brown bready notes, the kind of sweet caramel, the biscuity notes, the Vienna malt just gives you a nice bready character to it. But I think the yeast, they must have their own house yeast at Williams Brothers Brewing. I need to ask them about that when I do manage to make an interview with them. That would be really good, just to learn a little bit about that and exactly what they do. But maybe it's a secret, who knows. But yeah, I think there is the malt base in this one is typical Williams Brothers. Brown bread, sweet, a little bit of sweet caramel, nice McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing, and a slightly kind of grainy quality that comes out the further you go into the aftertaste. But let's move on to the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of the earthiness there. That is the that'll be the Magnum that's giving you that, and the Mosaic will contribute to it as well. But as you move further forward, it very quickly becomes a little bit darker and more kind of floral. And as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it does have a nice little bit of an almost kind of spicy character. And again, that'll be the Magnum in there. Remember, when it comes to the bitterness of your beers, that is dependent on when during the boil that you add the hops in. If you add the hops earlier on during the boil of the wort, you get more bitterness out of them, and then as you gradually progress through the boil, you get a trade-off between bitterness and more kind of flavour and aroma actually. So there's a nice little bit of that going on here. So I suspect the Magnum will have been used as the early edition hop here to give you the bitterness, and it's very familiar actually. I think Magnum, just going from the flavours on this, if it's Magnum that is that, I think that's quite a popular hop in these Williams Brothers beers. They seem to love that, just like some of the American breweries love Columbus. But yeah, round the front curve of the palate, the beer's distinctly lighter and a bit more grassy. But yeah, it is very, very nice, this one. So yeah, the green side of the beer in this is again quite typical Williams Brothers, to be honest with you. It's just got a nice little bit of that big floral aromatic quality. It's a little bit dank actually as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, fruity side of this one is very interesting as well. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and you're getting a lot of stuff going on in here. So as you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, there's definitely a little bit of a darker kind of grapefruity note there. You get a wee bit of the stronger passion fruit. These two elements I think will be coming from the Citra. Then it sort of mellows out and you get a mix of a softer passion fruit in there and the more mango notes. That will be you know, all of these kind of things. It'll be a mix of the Galaxy, the Simcoe and the Citra that's giving you that, but it's actually quite a strong pungent fruit, and that kind of comes forward about halfway on that front third of your palate. But as soon as you get into the more oily section of that front third of your tongue, it's distinctly kind of quite strong and orangey, citrusy like, and that will be the Azaka. That's the Azaka and the Mosaic combining to give you that. As you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue, there's a wee touch of limey flavour and then a little bit of zestiness on the very kind of front of the palate there, but yeah, that just works very, very nicely with this. It works very, very nicely with this beer, I have to say. You know, that it's a really oily, fruity character you get out of this one. This is distinctly kind of like it's basically like a West Coast IPA, this one, but with you know, it's a West Coast IPA, but with a more kind of traditional Englishy, Scottish type malt base to it. Even though it's, you know, German malts that are in this. Well, I say German, but Vienna malt's Austrian, you know, bad, that's bad. But yeah, stylistically it's absolutely a West Coast IPA. And it's just interesting, I've never made that connection before between these Williams Brothers beers and the Rooster Brewery ones from in Yorkshire. These are, you know, probably the English equivalent of Williams Brothers would be like Rooster Brewery in Yorkshire. So yeah, this is it's really solidly done. Lovely big oily orangey notes on that front half of the front third of your tongue. A little bit of lime in there. You do get a wee tiny bit of pineapple coming off this beer later on, but this one for me, it strikes me as like quite an old school beer. This, you've got a lot of those darker grapefruit and passion fruity notes. You've got quite a strong orangey character to it as well, and those are both equally prominent. It smells in the aroma like it's going to be more orangey orientated, but no, it's actually it's more balanced between the two. So it's quite a strong old school IPA, this one. I mean, it's got these big dank flavours. It's got the darker grapefruit and passion fruit and that kind of strong orange. So quite an old school leaning West Coast IPA, this one. So yeah, I like this. I certainly do like this. If you want a more old school West Coasty type IPA, then go for this one. If you want something that's a little bit more kind of juicy in a sense and a little bit kind of brighter, then go for the Juice Tiger. The Juice Tiger would be the one to go for in that sense. But yeah, I like this one. I certainly do like this one, and this could well, you know, this certainly could become a sort of go-to for me if it was one that was available on tap. I don't really drink outside of the videos that I do for you here, but yeah, if I did have another go-to from Williams Brothers, I could see this one being a candidate for that actually. So thumbs up to them for this. That, I think, describes the flavour profile of this beer pretty pretty well, to be honest with you. So let's just examine the mouthfeel quickly before we round off. I would say that this beer is pretty, I would say that it's pretty, it is kind of pretty, yeah, I would say that it's pretty kind of mid-bodied. It's kind of pushing towards the top of mid-bodied for me. The carbonation is very smooth. It's an oily beer. It's a very oily mouthfeel that you get out of this one. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this one's got to be about 60 IBUs. It could even be a little bit more than that. It does have a fair wee whack of IBUs in it, which is quite nice. So yeah, maybe about 60 IBUs. The malt base, like I say, it's got a bit of graininess to it, a little bit of smoothness in there as well, but also a good little bit of a kind of biscuity, brown sugary sweetness. Then you've got those big oily fruity characters in there and a wee bit of citrusy zest too. But yeah, it's a lovely beer, this one. I've enjoyed all 4 of the beers, or all 6 of the beers I should say, in this Totemic Tallboys range, so it is nice to see Williams Brothers being a little bit more experimental with them, and I always get excited when my local breweries are doing something a wee bit different. Unfortunately this time we haven't managed to review something from Harveston, but you know, to see Williams Brothers doing a few new things will be quite interesting. Maybe the next time I'm home there'll be a few more additions to the Totemic Tallboy range, and hopefully we can get a look at the canned lager in the thing as well. I would love to see them doing, you know, some more German style beers, you know, like Helles Dunkels and Doppelbocks and stuff like this. A big Scotch ale, a Scotch ale member of the Totemic Tallboys would be quite interesting as well. I think I would love to see them do something like that. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This has been another very interesting beer, and this is probably the last Williams Brothers one that you're going to see in this cycle of Scottish beer reviews. So yeah, let's leave it there. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Williams Brothers Brewing Company as well. We will return to these guys the next time I'm home, I'm sure, and like I say, hopefully we can do the craft lager, and there might well be more Totemic Tallboy beers to take a look at as well. But in the meantime, this one was the Tin Man 5.5% IPA, quite an old school West Coast type IPA, this one, with a little bit of a more kind of traditional Scottish English type malt base to it. That's how I would describe this one, but lovely stuff, and one I would recommend that you try. Check out my social media, check out Williams Brothers Brewing. Once again, thank you for watching. Comment and let me know your own thoughts and things in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys in the next review.